Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9 Live. Even as the BJP continues to woo the Christian community in Kerala, and rightly so, just a look at its success in the northeast and the kind of support the Christian community has extended is reason enough. Now, the Tamil Nadu Assembly has passed a resolution calling on the centre to amend the constitution and extend the same rights, protection, concessions and reservation to scheduled caste people who have converted to Christianity. And this is where the Adi Dravidars, who make up for 20% of the total population, become extremely significant. In the State Assembly, Stalin, the Chief Minister, said that as per the Constitution of India, people other than Hindus, Buddhists and Sikhs cannot be considered scheduled castes. He added, and I quote, "Historically, Christian Adi Dravidars belong to scheduled caste and it is only fair to extend the benefits of reservation to them." Close quote. Other parties, including the main opposition party AIADMK, welcomed the resolution, but the BJP MLAs staged a walkout, calling out the DMK government for cheating the community by bringing up resolutions such as these in the assembly. But even political brinkmanship continues. The questions we are asking are, is the move part of DMK and Stalin's social justice plank, or has the veteran leader foreseen the Saffron Party's Christian outreach in other states and has therefore made his own move? Before we make the discussion expansive with our panelist and also my colleague in the studio, let's listen into certain reactions coming in from the BJP and the Congress on the matter.
It's a long-awaited resolution that was expected. Nearly about last 40 years, this has been the request of the Dalit Christians to include them to continue with their own religion and as well as get the status, Dalit status, to continue with the status under the scheduled communities. So it's a welcome move because this is a long pending request in Tamil Nadu. Earlier, during Madam Jayalalitha's period, the Buddhism and who are converted to Buddhism and Sikhism were included, allowed to be continued under the scheduled category. But now the present government has gone ahead with the Christians who are Dalits, so that their practice of religion becomes easy because already they are converted. Only thing, they won't get their Dalit status for getting all the concessions or whatever reliefs, whatever special considerations by the government or any other direct under the direct payment system or whatever reliefs they are getting, they won't get if they continue to be, if they practice the other religion.
It is not only unconstitutional, it is a move by DMK for vote bank politics. With the full intentionally, they are trying to communalize the reservation issue. In a democratic country where we say that we don't have any bias towards religion, now this particular move is definitely communal, and the DMK has proved that it is a communal party. Mr. Stalin, the Chief Minister, is saying in the Assembly of Tamil Nadu that there are Dalit Christians, there are Dalit Muslims. How is it possible? Then he should accept that there is untouchability in Christianity and Islam. Will the Islamic scholars and the Christian scholars accept it, that they practice untouchability? Now we are asking only one question to Mr. Stalin. By bringing this resolution, do you accept that there is caste and untouchability practiced in Islam and Christianity? Number two, if the Registrar General in 2001 clearly said that in India only Hinduism, as per records, practicing untouchability. And in those who have converted to Christianity and Islam are not from one race. They are from different subcastes. So how will you classify the scheduled caste people in Islam and Christianity? Now, if this resolution is accepted, if this resolution is amended, what will happen? Almost at least 60 to 70% of scheduled caste will increase in India. So the competition increases. What will happen? A very big confusion will happen.
That is being brought by the Honorable CM, which is appealing to the central government to give reservation benefit to the converted Dalit community. Yes, of course, overall Dalit community who are converted to particularly to Islam and Christians. So what is our point of view in this? Already central government has given a commission, has formed a commission under the retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Mr. K.G. Balakrishnan. That is one thing, which is basically studying the aspect of giving reservation to the convert Dalit community.
Let's straight away dive into the conversation and understand the pros and cons of this brought by Muka Stalin Krishna Kumar. My colleague joins me in the studio and later will be joined by Narayan Lakshman, Senior Associate Editor of The Hindu, and Cynthia Stephen, who is Gender, Poverty and Development Policy Analyst. But first up, to you. Do you think this is only for vote bank politics, or I clearly see this as adding yet another layer to the Samutvam, to the social justice plank of the, of the Dravida Manushya Harakat?
I tend to agree more with the latter for factual reasons, not because of emotional reasons or my personal ideological reasons, so to speak. The fact of the matter is that you're talking about the Presidential Order of 1950, paragraph 3 of the Scheduled Castes in the Constitution of India, which has been modified twice. Once in 1956 and one is 1990. This paragraph deals with Dalits who have converted to other faith. It was modified in 1956 to include those Dalits converted to Sikhism, and then modified in 1990 to include those Dalits who have converted to Buddhism. Now, since then, Tamil Nadu state government under the chief ministership of Kalangar Karunanidhi had written to the central government of India in 1996, 2006, 2010 and 2011 on the same issue, that along with the Sikhs and those Dalits who have converted to Sikhism and Buddhism, those Dalits converting to Christianity and Islam be included, specifically Christianity, so to speak, which is what Kalangar Karunanidhi, the former chief minister, wrote to in 2010. And he was in fact attending a Christian carnival at that time, and then he said that he is willing to sacrifice anything to make sure that the community there gets justice. So in that sense, this is not new for the Tamil Nadu chief minister to write to the central government and ask for Dalit Christians to be included in the reservation in this in a presidential order. So M.K. Stalin is in a sense continuing a long-standing tradition, so to speak, and as you're rightly pointing out, he has just recently reinstated the importance of the social justice plank of the DMK, and this fits perfectly well inside that. So I think that call it vote bank politics, but it's definitely more than that. It's been in the works for 3 decades now.
Right, let me get Narayan Lakshman in, and also Cynthia Stephen, I beg your pardon, in a bit. Narayan, what my colleague Krishna was saying right now, we've all seen historically Kalangar Karunanidhi has always wanted this, and of course now, as it were, Stalin taking it forward. But if you need affirmative action, like he says, why exclude the Dalit Christians? I mean, just because you change your religion, that should not possibly, deprive you of certain, certain reservations that is applicable to, let us say, your counter, that being either Hindu, Sikh, or Buddhist. What is your opinion on this? Do you think that this is to expand the affirmative action umbrella, as it were, or you think this is just, as always, politics? Narayan Lakshman.
Yes, that's a very important question, and I think we have to understand two things. On the one hand, we have to understand what affirmative action or the reservation policy as such has been. And your colleague on the panel just correctly put it, since the early years of post-independence, it has been about recognizing social inequalities, which of course are differentiated, and even the recent conversations about EWS quota has clarified that. social inequalities requiring social justice, proactive measures are the result of multi-generation deprivations based on, for example, caste, where across generations, let's say within a family of a certain person within a certain caste group, there has been deprivation systematically happening, and that has disadvantaged the person from accessing certain resources of the state or in different regards, whether looking at education or employment. So that is the idea behind the reservation side. Now, the second silo to sort of look at is the Dravidian model, which M.K. Stalin has spoken about extensively, and indeed as have his critics in the BJP. The Dravidian model is also about social justice approached from the lens of political mobilization, which has happened, as we know, since 1967 and even before that, to bring lower and even some middle caste to a higher status. In the early years, it was about anti-Brahmanism, but now it is a far more inclusive social movement, if you can call it that, which is about bringing access to these resources. So I think, as your colleague just now said, it is about these two ideologies coming together. Of course, Tamil Nadu already has the highest level of reservation in the country at 69%. That is extremely high and goes well beyond the Supreme Court level of 50%, Supreme Court mandated level. But I think in terms of the intention, the motivation behind the policy, one has to see it through this lens. Obviously, when you're looking at someone crossing a religious divide or a religious line and then requesting the benefits of reservation, the question we should ask is, by crossing that religious line, do you automatically become ineligible from a social justice point of view or a social right point of view? And that is where the challenge lies, because the answer is simply no. You still face the same deprivations.
Right. Cynthia Stephen, let me also welcome you into the discussion now. Cynthia, you know what Narayan Lakshman was saying, you know, in the first place, when you are a particular social strata which is deemed to be underprivileged, marginalized, I quite concur with what Narayan Lakshman says, where he says that just because you change your religion, you cannot be deprived of certain, you know, reservations that is given to you. You know, I have read case studies in Tamil Nadu where somebody who was a Dalit Christian apparently, you know, converted back a god, because they are called OBC there, and then in order to get an SC certificate, apparently, the local administration came and checked out his house and his daughter's house to see whether they're still going to church. So, you know, this is kind of, I know that perhaps they got the orders from someone up there because the laws are still in place. But the point is that this is a very, very serious thing which is going on. And I quite concur with it. What is your opinion on this, Cynthia?
In the first place, I think there is a total shift in the opinion that once you convert, you need to lose your reservations, because as my predecessor in the panel spoke, also as Mr. Stalin has spoken, and you have also agreed, the religious status of the person doesn't necessarily change the social status. So it is very essential that people understand this. So it is a continuing denial of justice to a community which has been disadvantaged by by denying those benefits to those who choose to convert to Islam and Christianity.
Right.
It's a very selective discrimination. And there is no logical reason why this has to be perpetrated. But I would like to add that I think the BJP speaks with on two sides of the mouth in this. On the one hand, it is okay for them to woo the Christians in Kerala because they are interested in political gains on the one hand, and then they are challenging and asking whether there is untouchability in Christianity and Islam. This has nothing to do with untouchability either in Christianity or in Islam. Untouchability and is not a religious thing so much as a socio-cultural practice, and that has to be clearly understood. And when people are converting, then they are converting because they have a certain personal conviction and they want to live their lives differently. But the society continues to discriminate against them. So it totally undoes the constitutional desire for social justice.
Right. Narayan Tirupati, Vice President of the BJP in Tamil Nadu, is also joining us. Narayan, can you hear me?
Yes, Sudha.
Yeah. So, Narayan, the whole point is that I just saw I just heard your bite, and you've been very vehement, and you said, you know, they cannot do it. You called it unconstitutional. You said it will create confusion, you know, etc., etc. I just have one. Please go ahead, but, you know, when you answer the question, my whole point is untouchability cannot be the main word here, because untouchability is a crime. You know, so therefore, to say whether there is caste wars or untouchability perpetrated in Tamil Nadu is another conversation. I just want you to, for the benefit of the viewers, Narayanan, talk about what is the objection of the Bharatiya Janata Party in Tamil Nadu to what M.K. Stalin brought about in the assembly today.
See, not only in Tamil Nadu, the entire India. In 1950, the scheduled caste reservation was created for the SC people, the scheduled caste. By order 1950, it was created because the entire society was felt that it was not treated equal, because untouchability was there. This is the main thing. And what has happened is the Kaka Kalkar committee in 1955, if I am right, they have very clearly said that in the Sikh community, the untouchability was practiced and people were not treated as equals. That is why the Sikhs were included into the list of scheduled caste, the order 1950, and it was amended. And again in 1990s, Buddhist people were added. Now, right from the day one, both Christianity and Islam, they say that they do not have any caste system in their religion. And also, they have been saying that all are treated equally. So whoever is poor, they are supposed to be economically poor, and they are not backward socially or by caste-wise or untouchability. That is what these people have been saying. And number two, the entire DMK or Congress or the other allies of DMK were saying that untouchability and unequalness were practiced only in Hinduism. And in fact, Mr. Stalin, the Chief Minister, while addressing so many functions or marriages in Christianity or in Islam, used to say that he liked the Christianity and Islam only because they all were equal, treated equal in that religion. So, where is the question of reservation comes here? See, and after all these things, suddenly you bring so many people from other religion into this. How will you manage this much of people?
No, but is the BJP nervous? Is Narayanan, is the BJP kind of, I somehow feel you are nervous, because that is the kernel of the argument. You say, how will they manage? There is a lot of confusion. What is the confusion? More Christians, more Muslims as against Hindus?
If you feel that I am nervous, I am sorry. I feel you people are nervous because this is done only to get votes. This is done only to get votes. This is vote bank politics. Because minority people, they vote in a lot. These people are trying to do that. First of all, this is unconstitutional. Yes or no? Even last week in Kerala, one person was, he was removed. The judgment was that one Raja, if I am right, Devikulam constituency, and he was disqualified because he has falsely given a certificate. He has falsely contested, saying that he is a SC, Hindu SC, but he belongs to Christian religion. So even the courts have declared very well. So it is unconstitutional. And you have been accusing the Hindu religion that the caste equality, inequality, and untouchability has been practiced. Now, in order to give this, you say that these religions practice this thing, inequality.
Right. Let me go to Narayan Lakshman now. I also wanted to ask something of Krishna, but first Narayan Lakshman. Narayan Lakshman, I just want to, this little technicality which is there, of course, that, I am a Dalit, I'm a scheduled caste, but then I convert to Christianity. I actually become an OBC and then I come back to scheduled caste. See, there is a lot of confusion in this. But my whole point is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when it is affirmative action, that is the main, the core of any kind of a reservation or affirmative action. So I don't see it as something that you can't shift. You've just been here, you cannot shift, because I think ultimately it is about affirmative action for those who've been marginalized and disadvantaged for decades and decades. Do you think that the BJP is kind of nervous, and I don't want to create a fight here or a slugfest, but then the point is that then, there'll be more Christians or more Muslims in the SC category, Narayan Lakshman?
Well, that is exactly right. So I think they're scared. And in fact, for them, as much as they want to accuse others of conversion, they are busily engaging in anti-conversion. You are standing against the right and the will of any individual who wishes to convert their religion for any personal reason. You have the right to religious freedom in India. So they are nervous about the so-called incentive effect that this will supposedly have on people converting. But the truth is, the reason people are converting, let's as an example, from Hinduism to other religions, is because they have suffered the deprivations of and the inequality and the humiliating social treatment of the caste system within Hinduism. Okay, so that is well known and well documented. I think where there is scope to articulate this debate better is, look, on paper, in terms of their religious texts, maybe the Abrahamic religions, that is Islam and Christianity, do hold out the promise of equality or equal treatment among their members. But the fact is that such religions are different in every society where they are propagated. Christianity, as it happens in the West, or let's say in some other country where there's social homogeneity, is going to be very different from Christianity as it is practiced in India.
Yeah.
So what maybe these communities can do, along with sociologists and anthropologists, is to articulate the exact nature of the inequality that exists within their religions too. It is very much a reality already. The BJP is deliberately misleading to argue that it is a absolute equality within those religions.
Right.
It needs further articulation in the Indian social context.
And once
that happens, the BJP will not have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, Narayan Lakshman, what I like is that, what I think we should also discuss is about the not so much religiosity, but the socio-cultural reasons for untouchability to be perpetrated in each society. And I'm going to come back to you, or rather to go to Narayan Tirupati to ask that. Cynthia Stephen, let me get you in. I have read reports. Now, even in this, if I'm a scheduled caste and Dalit and I have been converted to Christianity, apparently even there is discrimination. The bishops there do not allow those to be buried in the same fashion as this side does. There is kind of, a discrimination even there. So when will this stop? The thing is that it is more socio-cultural than anything else, no, Cynthia? I think Cynthia, we've lost Cynthia. I'm going to ask you that, Krishna. I'll bring it, untouchability, if you want to talk about, and how Hinduism. But the point is that even our so-called gurus and people who actually have a major hand in the way Hinduism has been fashioned, Adi Shankara, he was against untouchability. So the thing is, don't you think it is more socio-cultural, like Narayan Lakshman says, than anything to do with religion? Because like in a Western country, like he says, let's say North America, not that I have statistics, Krishna, let me be clear. I'm sure there are discrimination there also. But overall, this untouchability business does not take place there.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it doesn't take place in India, at least according to law.
Rider.
Yeah, but we know how these things get circumvented in actual case practice, on the ground over there, and all the more reason why social reformation and social justice needs to be dealt with an iron fist when it comes at the constitution level, at the legal level. And all this discussion about untouchability is, the fact of the matter is that it is illegal, it is criminal anywhere in the world, be it in India or outside, as far as the eye of the law is concerned. But the concern in India is that law is one thing and what is in social practice is another thing altogether. So for that to even dissipate, there needs to be stronger messages coming in from the people governing the country. When the message comes from the government, it becomes that much more clearer and drives the point home deeper. And that is the reason why this should not be seen purely as vote bank politics alone. Yes, sure, the DMK and MK Stalin will get benefits out of, electoral benefits out of it. But it is a larger debate on social reform being need of the hour, even today, even after 75 years of affirmative action in India.
Right. Narayan Tirupati, there is a lot of narrative from the Congress party about carrying out a caste census. I did a show yesterday and said that it was completely hypocritical of them, considering starting from Nehru to Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Siddaramaiah, you name it, they all kind of sat on it and did nothing about it. Now to get up and say, oh, do a caste census, smacks of hypocrisy and nothing else. But I'm asking you one question. The thing is that, when the center says, let's talk about EWS, the entire reservation fulcrum is based on poverty. It is not so much based on what is called marginalization. The second question is that if I'm a scheduled caste and I'm a Dalit, I'm anyway getting all the benefits, Narayan Tirupati. My child, if she cracks NEET, she can go to the college, everything. How is it going to help me? Because religion is a big thing in this country. Why should I convert to either Christianity or Islam?
See, first of all, we should understand the reason for, the people who changed their religion, who actually got converted to other religions from Hinduism is the inequality and the untouchability. We need to understand this. So, first of all, we would like to ask these people who are advocating for the Dalit, so-called Dalit in Islam or Christianity. First, let them say that the Islam and the Christianity has got discrimination in their religion. Discrimination and untouchability is practiced in their religion. Because why I am asking this is, for the last so many decades, all these people have been abusing the Hindu religion, stating that this is the only religion untouchability has been practiced, and this is the only religion inequality is there, and that is the reason people are oppressed. And that is the reason Islam and Christianity are, staying and people are getting converted. So this is it. Now, these people who are talking about this, first let them say, let them commit that yes, there is inequality in this religion. Yes, there is untouchability in this religion. And what is the reason? They have to apologize to the people of India.
Right.
That they have been sorry, saying only pinpointing. I don't say that untouchability was not there. It was there. I don't deny that. But they have to say, yes, we are sorry. We have been unnecessarily, unwantedly, we have been for the sake of vote. We have been appeasing these minorities.
Narayan Tirupati, I don't think, you could be right, absolutely, and I'm adding that rider. But I think there were different things that Muka Stalin spoke about. He said there is discrimination and untouchability still. He did not say that because they are untouchable, we should extend the reservation to them. He said, let's extend the reservation to them.
Sudha, please, what these people are saying when EWS was introduced, they
that
said reservation is only on caste.
Yeah.
That is the constitution. Yes or no? That is what they have said. Reservation is in India is only based on caste. That is what Mr. MK Stalin or whoever has said. In fact, when Mandal Commission came, it was Rajiv Gandhi, father of Rahul Gandhi, who said that nation will be divided if Mandal Commission is being if implemented.
Their hypocrisy.
These people always say,
No, there was hypocrisy. He called it a can of worms during Mandal.
And we have been, there is no, but BJP, we have been saying that we cannot, because of, it is unconstitutional. We say that it is not possible because it is unconstitutional. We should see
so we'll wait for the Balakrishna committee report.
Yes.
No, we will wait for it.
Let's
wait for it. Cynthia Stephen, you're back with us and I'm happy that you are. I'm saying that, look at this. We're speaking about reservation for Dalit Christians, right? But the question that I asked you when we, our network failed us is about even there is discrimination. Apparently, the bishops do not get the kind of burial that they're supposed to get. There is discrimination there also. It is us versus them. And I have read several reports. So ultimately, and I'm taking it to the socio-cultural ambit now, Cynthia Stephen, is that it's the same thing which is perpetrated there also. So what's the difference?
No, it's not the same thing. The reflection, it's not the same thing in one way, not in every way. The point is that this happens only in certain churches, they're traditional churches, and where these churches are quite old, at least having a history of at least 100 years, like pre-independence period. Subsequently, there has been a huge growth of other churches as well, which have no such traditions of excluding people from and having burials for different and using caste as a way to discriminate.
Cynthia, there are reports, and you would know better, I would not, but then one has read reports 2015.
There are reports. I'm not denying that they don't exist. I'm not denying that they don't exist.
Right?
They do exist. It should not, but that is the point. That caste has permeated every structure within our society.
Right.
Even and remember that these institutions are headed by they are institutions which have lasted a long time and are headed by mostly powerful castes. Very few Dalits actually make it into the hierarchy of those churches. So in other words, the church hierarchy also reflects the social inequality within the larger society.
So there you
this
are.
has to be understood.
So there
but
you
this
are.
Is, I want to limit that only to traditional churches. There has been indeed a large growth of smaller independent.
Whether it's traditional, non-traditional, modernist, Methodist, whatever, it should not happen. The point is that then what's the point of a reservation?
There is a, sir, madam, there are entire organizations, national level bodies protesting against this, and even on the 28th of March, there was a big protest in Jantar Mantar by the Christian community. There is a lot of activity within the churches, traditional churches, where caste is seen as a reality to oppose it.
Yes.
So that the internal change process is happening already.
Right. Narayan Lakshman,
and plus, there is a lot of growth of churches which don't follow that system.
Right. Narayan Lakshman,
I'm saying that there has been a lot.
Right. Narayan Lakshman, the point is that it is about tweaking it. It's there. I could be hold an SC certificate, and someone else could be holding an OBC certificate who's embraced Christianity. It is a bit of tweaking it. It's not that. But like I've said, religion is a big deal in this country, and why not? I mean, good for them. The point is that if I'm already scheduled caste and a Dalit, and I have a certificate, and I also have all the benefits, which will perhaps egg me on, or rather propel me to be part of the larger ambit, why is it that I will change my religion is something which really is something that I do not understand, unless there is coercion, or unless there is a huge kind of, something which is being offered to me, which one can't really refuse. Don't you think that this is a very, very superficial argument to say, oh, you're going to jump and change your religion?
Look, Sudha, I mean, your question is again extremely pertinent. I think we have to understand the social realities of Indians, of our people, as they live not just in cities, but across villages, across states. Now, on the one hand, there are certain kinds of deprivations which the reservation policy historically is designed to solve. And as we know very well, that relates to education, that relates to employment in, let's say, universities, government jobs, things like that. But on the other hand, there is also social discrimination, which has to do with the dignity of the individual.
Right.
So when you have, let's say, again, as a hypothetical example, you hear cases, let's say, from Uttar Pradesh, where, the caste system is, in some cases, followed very strictly in rural areas. There are horrific injustices meted out to lower caste people, and definitely to Dalits. I don't even want to describe the terms in which they are treated. It's a violation of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So when you have such situations, even if you are, despite those barriers, able to access some benefits that the state provides under reservation, you may be enthused to approach another religion. I'm not naming any particular as greater or lesser than Hinduism. But any other religion that does say, look, we will socially treat you correctly, or we will socially not discriminate against you, we will not have you beaten and hung from trees and raped and all those things that are going on. So I think life as we know it for people, especially in rural India, it is a complex picture. And one reservation policy offering just education and employment will not solve the problems. Therefore, we cannot really sit back in our armchairs and challenge why someone is picking another religion, leave alone the spiritual and other reasons to go. That is a whole other cup of tea. But even if you're looking at just at the socio-cultural, I'm trying to say there are good reasons to migrate from one religion to the other. And when you do so, you should not be deprived of the few benefits that you were able to access as a lower caste person historically through your family for many generations.
Right, and I've completely run out of time, and I want to thank Cynthia Stephen, I want to thank Narayan Lakshman and Narayan Tirupati for joining me on the debate. It's actually about laws and it's about society, and in this case, I think they are mirroring each other. Both have to really get their act together for us not to have such discriminatory incidents that we hear about caste day in and day out. News and analysis will continue. You're watching News 9 Live.
उसके अधिकार क्षेत्र का हम उपयोग करेंगे, निकट भविष्य में करेंगे। इसमें तिथि देना आवश्यक नहीं है, लेकिन हमारे सभी अधिकार क्षेत्र जल्द से जल्द इस्तेमाल किए जाएंगे। आप जानते हैं कि हमारे जो संवैधानिक न्यायालय हैं, जो उच्च न्यायालय भी आता है, जिसमें उच्चतम न्यायालय भी आता है, उनके पास व्यापक ऐसे पावर्स हैं जिनके अंतर्गत ये जो गलत कारणों से गलत कानूनी आधार पर दो निर्णय आए हैं, उनको चुनौती दी जाएगी और हमें आशा और विश्वास है कि जल्द से जल्द ये सही की जाएगी, गलती को ठीक किया जाएगा न्यायिक कानूनी रूप से। जहाँ तक श्री राहुल गांधी जी के वक्तव्य का सवाल है, सब जानते हैं कि वो एक लाइन किस संदर्भ, किस परिप्रेक्ष्य में कही गई थी, किस प्रकार से उसको तोड़ फोड़ कर एक नई आयाम दिया गया है, जो बिल्कुल सीधा देखने पे भी झूठा और बेमानी दिखता है। जो कारण दिए गए हैं इस निर्णय में वो बिल्कुल संदिग्ध हैं, गलत हैं, कानूनी रूप से मैं कह रहा हूं। और जो बार बार ओबीसी के विषय में टिप्पणियां की जा रही हैं, उनका उल्टा असर अब हो रहा है। सभी लोग समझते हैं कि ओबीसी समुदाय के लोगों ने ये समझ लिया है कि मोदी जी और सत्तारूढ़ बीजेपी किस प्रकार से उनके नाम का दुरुपयोग कर रहे हैं, उनके नाम को भुनाने का प्रयत्न कर रहे हैं राजनीतिक रूप से। दो वर्ष का मैक्सिमम दंड देना, जो कभी सुना नहीं गया, कभी हुआ नहीं। मानहानि के क्षेत्र में कन्विक्शन ही नहीं होता है क्रिमिनल, लेकिन अगर होता है तो 3 या 5 महीने से ज़्यादा कभी सुना नहीं गया, उसको सेशंस कोर्ट द्वारा सही मानना बिल्कुल गलत है। इससे अगर कोई भी समझता है कि राहुल गांधी की आवाज़ रुकेगी, झुकेगी, साइलेंट होगी, तो वो न राहुल गांधी को जानते हैं न कांग्रेस को समझते हैं। राहुल गांधी स्पष्ट और सही रूप से बोलते हैं। वो लोगों के, जनता जनार्दन के न्यायालय में, उनके दरबार में बोलते हैं, और उन्होंने कोई गलत न कहा है न कहेंगे, लेकिन अपनी आवाज़ पुरजोर तरीके से सबके सामने रखेंगे। उनके पीछे पड़ना, उनको कभी ट्रोल करना, उनके संसद में बोलने से पहले प्री कंडीशंस रखना, संसद को सत्तारूढ़ पार्टी द्वारा अवरुद्ध करना, उनकी सदस्यता पे प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाना, उनको प्रिविलेजेस कमेटी से डराना धमकाना, इस किसी से कुछ फर्क न पड़ा है, न पड़ेगा, न राहुल गांधी को, न कांग्रेस पार्टी को। जो उनके कानूनी अधिकार क्षेत्र हैं, संवैधानिक अधिकार क्षेत्र हैं, उन सब का वो प्रयोग करते रहेंगे। और इस जरिए जो चिंता दिखा रहे हैं माननीय मोदी जी, बीजेपी सरकार, सत्तारूढ़ पार्टी, वो सिर्फ एक चीज दिखा रहे हैं, वो चिंता व्यक्त कर रहे हैं, घबराहट और बौखलाहट व्यक्त कर रहे हैं इस प्रकार के हथकंडों से। न कि राहुल गांधी के जनहित में पूछे गए इतने सारे अलग अलग प्रश्नों का उत्तर देना, भ्रष्टाचार से संबंधित बहुत पैनी दृष्टि से पूछे गए प्रश्न इत्यादि। अब मैं 2-4 मिनट लूंगा आपके साथ में, तकनीकी नहीं होना चाहता, लेकिन आपको एक छोटा सा एक झांकी देना चाहता हूं कि किस प्रकार से पढ़ने दिखने में भी ये निर्णय गलत लगता है जो आज आया है। और मैं जानता हूं कि मैं जनता से बात कर रहा हूं, आपके जरिए जर्नलिस्ट से बात कर रहा हूं, मैं कोई कानून की बहस नहीं कर रहा, लेकिन जब निर्णय आता है तो निर्णय में आवश्यक हो जाता है कि कुछ तो कुछ डिटेल में जाया जाए। अगर आप कुछ 3-4 पैरास देखें शुरू के, तो विचित्रता इस केस में एक बड़ी अजीब है। केस के बाद केस, यानी पुराने निर्णय लिखे गए हैं, साइट किए गए हैं, जो पढ़ने से भी मालूम पड़ता है कि गलत साइट किए गए हैं, जो लागू नहीं होते या लागू हमारे पक्ष में होते हैं, यानी राहुल गांधी के पक्ष में, या अनुपयुक्त हैं, उनका दुरुपयोग या इस्तेमाल किया गया है निर्णय पे आने के लिए। मैं उदाहरण दूं कुछ आपको। एक पन्ने 4 पे, मैं डिटेल में नहीं जाना चाहता, केस साइट किया गया है और इन सब केसेस में सिलेक्टिवली, आंशिक रूप से कोटेशन दिए गए हैं, व्यापकता नहीं देखी गई है। एक सरीन का केस उच्चतम न्यायालय का साइट किया है माननीय न्यायाधीश जी, जिनका निर्णय आज आया है, और उसमें ये लिखा है, इफ सो द लीगल पोजीशन कैन बी लेड डाउन दैट व्हेन कन्विक्शन इज ऑन अ करप्शन चार्ज अगेंस्ट अ पब्लिक सर्वेंट द कोर्ट शुड नॉट सस्पेंड द ऑर्डर ऑफ कन्विक्शन। अब ये अंडरलाइन किया गया है ये माननीय सेशंस जज द्वारा अंडरलाइन किया गया है, सिर्फ इन्हीं हिस्सों पे रिलाई किया गया है। क्या ये करप्शन चार्ज का केस था? राहुल गांधी करप्शन चार्ज पे संदिग्ध हैं या अभियुक्त हैं? दूसरा उदाहरण दिया नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू का। याद रहे, वैसे नवजोत सिद्धू के केस में मर्डर चार्ज था या मैनस्लॉटर चार्ज था, उसको अंडरलाइन किया गया। मैं सिर्फ अंडरलाइन पोर्शन पढ़ रहा हूं निर्णय के, और ये अंडरलाइनिंग मेरी नहीं, प्रिंटर की नहीं, माननीय न्यायाधीश की है। दूसरा, जब आप नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू का साइट करते हैं अंडरलाइन करके, तो ये सेंटेंस जो आपने अंडरलाइन किया है, क्या कहता है? बट द पर्सन सीकिंग स्टे ऑफ कन्विक्शन should specifically draw the attention of the appellate court to the consequences that may arise if the conviction is not stayed. राहुल गांधी ने क्या किया था? यही तो बताया था कि परिणाम कितने सीरियस हैं कि मेरे को जो मानव अधिकार है पार्लियामेंट के अंदर बोलने का या रहने का, वो निलंबित हो जाएगा। और याद रहे कि यही कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज एक मर्डर चार्ज में 2007 में माननीय सिद्धू साहब ने उच्चतम न्यायालय को बताया, उन्होंने सस्पेंड कर दिया कन्विक्शन मर्डर चार्ज में। इसको साइट करते हैं माननीय न्यायाधीश, अंडरलाइन करते हैं, लेकिन मेरे विरुद्ध लागू करते हैं। ये आपको पारदर्शी लिखित रूप से आम आदमी को समझने वाली गलतियां बता रहा हूं, मैं कोई कानूनी दलील नहीं कर रहा। तीसरा केस साइट किया है रविकांत पाटिल का, अंडरलाइन किया है, वही कहा है, शुड ड्रॉ द अटेंशन ऑफ द एपेलेट कोर्ट टू द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस दैट मे अराइज इफ कन्विक्शन इज नॉट स्टेड। ये इसलिए लिखा जाता है सेंटेंस कि जहां पर कोई आदमी निलंबित हो जाए, सस्पेंड हो जाए असेंबली से या पार्लियामेंट से, तो ये परिणाम आप लाइए सामने, हम सस्पेंड कर देंगे कन्विक्शन। इसको साइड किया गया मेरे विरुद्ध। ये तो मजाकिया गलती होगी और इसको हम उच्च न्यायालय में बिल्कुल सामने रखेंगे। एक चौथा केस श्याम नारायण पांडे साइड किया गया, आपके पन्ने 6 में होना चाहिए अगर आपके पास कॉपी है तो। उसमें लिखा है, similar, if the convict is involved in crimes which are so outrageous, then it would have serious impact on the public perception of the integrity of the institution, then it should not be stayed. Criminal मानहानि so outrageous, इसको तो टेररिज्म जैसी बात कर रहे हैं या खून खराबे की बात कर रहे हैं। मानहानि का चार्ज है जो अभी मानहानि के लेवल पे है, इस प्रकार के कई ऐसे और उदाहरण हैं जो दिखाता है कि प्राथमिक सिर्फ देखने से भी निर्णय संदिग्ध है, गलत है, कानूनी रूप से जिसका आधार नहीं है।
On March 20, 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned member states they were not doing enough to limit global warming. Phase out coal by 2040, appealed United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
No new coal, and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries.
Fossil fuels like coal, gas and oil emit carbon dioxide. This stays in the atmosphere longer than other greenhouse gases like methane. The world used more than 8,000 million tons of coal in the year 2022. Its emission traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere and raises temperatures.
India has been consistently advocating that we move away completely from fossil fuels, not just identifying coal as one of the villains in this case. And this stand was, so to say, raised by India at the COP. But then the developed economies did not sign. Now, the good thing is that the UN also has, so to say, vindicated its India's stand by saying that this is the right approach to go.
India's installed power generation capacity is more than 4 lakh megawatt. This includes fossil and non-fossil fuels. Of this, almost half is coal. The remaining sources of energy include hydropower, lignite, gas, diesel, wind, solar, and nuclear.
We consumed about 697 million tons in the power sector. I'm not talking about coal for all the other sectors, which was over 1,000 million tons last year. Up to 2030 will be, the power sector will consume about 990 million tons or so.
India should actually, not only sustain its coal production, but grow it. And I'm happy to tell you that India is exactly doing that. It is growing its production, and it has set some ambitious targets. And what is interesting is that now there is a plan to actually export coal by 2026. So that's extremely on track when it comes to looking at the coal policy in this country.
India's energy demand is going to quadruple over the next 20 years. And it cannot rely on a variable source of generation like REs.
You have sun, which shines only for a few hours in the day. Similarly, wind blows only at certain times of the year and certain time of the day. We do have some amount of hydro, but it cannot take. Hydro also has its limitations in terms of environmental issues. So we have to depend on coal.
West has made a lot of strong economic growth by using cheaper fossil fuels then. But now I think this whole demand of just phasing out coal and not phasing out of all fossil fuels has been very unjust and unfair to the developing countries who are relying more on coal.
They are not dependent on natural gas. And there is assumption that natural gas pollutes lesser than coal. When you mine natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel. It still emits carbon dioxide. And I said extraction of fossil fuel emits a lot of methane into the atmosphere, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
I think the reality is that there was a huge hiring spree that happened globally.
You might reduce your electricity consumption, which will save you 1 or 2% or 0.1%. You might reduce a little office space, which will save you maybe 1 or 2%. But you reduce your staff, you save 10% overnight.
Economic reality did not force Google to lay off 12,000 of our coworkers.
Companies are trying to attract them with higher and higher salaries, and sometimes these things are also hype.
There was a surge and a frenzied hiring that happened, particularly starting from, let's say, end 2021.
They should have seen the writing on the wall many months back and conserved cash. So what should have been done maybe 1 or 2 quarters ago, they're doing right now.
Every morning you wake up, you read the headlines, they're shouting at you, 9,000 fired, 18,000 laid off, 50,000 gone. These are not the kind of numbers that one is used to seeing in papers every day.
You are fired.
When we entered 2023, we were looking at trouble at Twitter. Elon Musk had just taken over and more than half of the global workforce had been wiped out almost instantly. Little did we know at that time that the trouble at Twitter was a very different chapter. And there was a trouble of a different kind brewing in the big tech industry in the US. And that sort of led to what I refer to as the layoff pandemic. It wasn't restricted to one company. It wasn't restricted to a few employees. It happened in thousands. And when you talk about big tech, this is an industry that drives Silicon Valley, that drives a major chunk of the global economy. And you had the likes of Meta, which was earlier called Facebook. You had the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, Google's parent Alphabet, everybody literally laying off employees in thousands. It continued to make headlines every day. There was a ticker that we were maintaining in our newsrooms, and there were more zeros added to it every day as we progressed.
I think the reality is that there was a huge hiring spree that happened globally. So I think right now everybody's realizing that they need to do more with less. I think global tech companies, they are looking at the macro environment in terms of how tech is doing, and just doing, in some cases, pruning is not a bad thing.
As far as the Western companies, particularly in America, are concerned, this is a correction. If you look at the hiring they had over the last 2 years, it is enormous. They hired much more than they needed. The cost base went up. Now they're finding the revenues not growing at the same pace because many of them are getting saturated.
Well, that's part of the reason, because you focus so much just on the top line and it's growing. When that top line stops growing, then everybody starts worrying and people begin pulling out money. Or money is not, infusion is not as much as you thought. Not even say pulling out money. No investors may not pull out their money, but new investment that you expected is not coming. You suddenly realize, hey, I can't survive like this. And then you find that you've got to cut costs. And how do you cut costs? These are people companies. No? That's one of the things of this whole sector.
But even after layoff, the employee count in the tech industry is still at the same level at where it was before the pandemic started. So I don't see that as an area of big concern. The only thing that is concerning is that because the industry is maturing, we will not expect the same kind of growth we saw, say, last 3 years or last 5 years.
I don't think any of us could have foreseen what happened, that COVID coming and hitting us as badly. Ukraine, the war at Ukraine, I don't think that was something that you can factor in, right? The recent Silicon Valley Bank. So it isn't that companies don't, plan in these unforeseen, but the magnitude of these unforeseen is what is something that I don't think anyone could. If they could, I think every company would, why would somebody want to hire and then fire?
Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. English is not mandatory. Yes, you're reading that particular background. Absolutely right. And it is some good news as well for students, especially from the non-English medium backgrounds. The UGC has allowed students to write exams in local languages, even if the course is offered in English medium. Now, to understand the context and the reasons, let's go across to my colleague Pankaj Mishra joining us here in the studio. Pankaj, good news, bad news, or is it a mixed review? Help soothe the anxieties of all the students out there.
Well, I would say it's good news in a way because, Kabir, it doesn't just end at your writing desk, at your examination hall where you are writing your paper, but it also paves a way, Kabir, basically for the subsequent books that would be coming out for higher studies also, and to inculcate that practice. There are, what UGC has done as of now is to increase the teaching and learning process, the cycle of it in mother tongue, in the local language, in the language that you and I speak at home. That way, even if you are supposed the answers instruction or the answers language is in English, the UGC has given this leeway to the students that they can answer in their own mother tongue, because that way it will gradually go down to the basic level where the government or the UGC as of now wants that the books should start coming in that language. Remember, Kabir, not long ago when medical books were introduced in Hindi.
Right.
So, well, the jury is still out whether the terminologies were translated in Hindi or not. They were still in English, but they were still written in Hindi. That was a step towards what making local language, colloquial language, mother tongue more acceptable in higher studies as well.
Well, absolutely. It seems like the Commission has stressed that it is necessary to strengthen these efforts and promote such initiatives as writing writing the textbooks in the mother tongue and local languages should be encouraged, and hence the teaching and the career growth of the student as well. So, according to Pankaj, it is good news out there. What do you think about it? You can comment down below in the comment section as well. We are going to continue to keep our ears on the ground when it comes to news coming for and from the students' community. Many thanks for watching this quick episode. Lots more coming right on the other side. Keep watching News 9 Live. On March 20, 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned member states they were not doing enough to limit global warming. Phase out coal by 2040, appealed United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
No new coal, and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries.
Fossil fuels like coal, gas and oil emit carbon dioxide. This stays in the atmosphere longer than other greenhouse gases like methane. The world used more than 8,000 million tons of coal in the year 2022. Its emission traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere and raises temperatures.
India has been consistently advocating that we move away completely from fossil fuels, not just identifying coal as one of the villains in this case. And this stand was, so to say, raised by India at the COP. But then the developed economies did not sign. Now, the good thing is that the UN also has, so to say, vindicated its India's stand by saying that this is the right approach to go.
India's installed power generation capacity is more than 4 lakh megawatt. This includes fossil and non-fossil fuels. Of this, almost half is coal. The remaining sources of energy include hydropower, lignite, gas, diesel, wind, solar and nuclear.
We consumed about 697 million tons in the power sector. I'm not talking about coal for all the other sectors, which was over 1,000 million tons last year. Up to 2030 will be, the power sector will consume about 990 million tons or so.
India should actually, not only sustain its coal production, but grow it. And I'm happy to tell you that India is exactly doing that. It is growing its production and it has set some ambitious targets. And what is interesting is that now there is a plan to actually export coal by 2026. So that's extremely on track when it comes to looking at the coal policy in this country.
India's energy demand is going to quadruple over next 20 years. And it cannot rely on a variable source of generation like REs.
You have sun, which shines only for a few hours in the day. Similarly, wind blows only at certain times of the year and certain time of the day. We do have some amount of hydro, but it cannot take. Hydro also has its limitations in terms of environmental issues. So we have to depend on coal.
West has made a lot of strong economic growth by using cheaper fossil fuels then. But now I think this whole demand of just phasing out coal and not phasing out of all fossil fuels has been very unjust and unfair to the developing countries who are relying more on coal.
They are a lot dependent on natural gas. And there is assumption that natural gas pollutes lesser than coal. When you mine natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel. It still emits carbon dioxide. And I said extraction of fossil fuel emits a lot of methane into the atmosphere, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9. Bonvita has been in news recently, but for all the wrong reasons. The question that everybody is asking, is the drink healthy as it portrays to be or claims to be? Now, as per company's own admission, every 20 gram of Bonvita has 7.5 gram of added sugar, which is approximately 1.5 teaspoons. This means for every 100 gram of Bonvita, you are consuming 37.5 gram added sugar. Now, products that have more than 22.5 grams sugar per 100 grams are considered to be high in sugar as per the UK's health regulator. In India, there is still ambiguity. Now, we all know that too much sugar is not healthy. It is unhealthy for kids as well as adults. It leads to a variety of health problems and is clearly not in our best interest. So why exactly are we hearing about this right now? There is a reason for it. Joining me at this point in time in the studio is my colleague Suyash. Suyash, I want to come to you first. Let's understand where it all began from. The controversy over sugar or high content of sugar in various products in India is not new, but where did this all start from?
So Shweta, on April 1st, this influencer called Revant Hemant Singha, he put out a tweet, he put out a video on Instagram which claimed that, which talked about the harmful effects of Bonvita. Now, Revant made a bunch of claims. 3 stood out. First, that Bonvita is high in sugar level, which can cause diabetes. Second, it contains cocoa solids, which has, now cocoa contains caffeine naturally. So Bonvita also has caffeine. And the third is that it has cancer-causing colorants. Now the video went viral on social media and amassed nearly 12 million views in a matter of days, with many celebrities also retweeting and resharing the video. Now Cadbury hit back and they called Revant's video unscientific and said that the video distorted facts and made false and negative inferences. Now on April 13th, Revant takes down this video after receiving this legal notice from Cadbury. And in an Instagram post a day later, he says that he apologized to Cadbury first and then said that he had no intentions of defaming Cadbury, and more so he has no intentions to participate in any legal court cases.
Okay, it's interesting because we were playing up that clarification that he's put out, and he's not saying that the claims that he made were misleading. What he's essentially saying is he does not have the wherewithal to start a legal case and would hence not want to go ahead with it. Took down the video. Also joining me at this point in time, my colleague Kartik Malhotra and Dr. Shikha Sharma, who's a nutritionist. I want to come to you first. Kartik, this is an ongoing controversy. We've not covered it in the first initial few days, thinking that this was perhaps limited to yet another brand, yet another product, but this is deeper than that. This is about the health of our kids, our children, but also about misleading branding, which a lot of, I think, huge FMCG companies are getting away with.
Yeah, Shweta, it's difficult for an individual to actually take on a large corporation like Mondelez, right?
So very simply put, yes, there was a video, it went viral on social media, it amassed a lot of views. Apparently, whatever claims were made by the influencer are not totally unsubstantiated. But it's very difficult for an individual to go up against an MNC as large as Mondelez. Now, the point that needs to be driven home is these products are still getting sold in India and perhaps in other parts of the world as well. So the larger question needs to be asked to the regulators, to the food authority bodies, FSS, AI, for example, that if these products are indeed harmful, why are they permitted to be sold? Why are they available on our shelves? And if they're not as harmful as they are stated to be, do they qualify as healthy ingredients to go into beverages or to go into milk, right? Of course, the health benefits of milk have also been debated multiple times over, and those who believe in the vegan way of life, have a problem with dairy as well. But one knows scientifically for a fact that dairy definitely has protein. Dairy helps you build muscles. And Dr. Shikhar Sharma would be able to educate us on better advantages of dairy. But if these products go into a healthy dairy product, are they adding more harm than good? And if that is the case, then these products need to really be upfront about the warning and the potential health hazards, rather than putting them at the back of the cover in very fine print that many people in India don't really take the time to read. As a nation, we are not that health conscious yet. We want to do our morning walks, we want to talk about air pollution, we want to talk about eating salads and eating a rich diet food. But how many times do we really go and look at anything written behind the package being sold, apart from the MRP or at best the expiry?
Okay, we're not conscious, not that conscious just as yet. Dr. Shikhar, we also have at this point in time joining us Dr. HPS Sachdev, who's also a member of various committees that have been constituted by FSSAI, the regulatory body in India, under question for not really, making these brands accountable at large. I want to come to you, Dr. Shikhar, first. We looked at those numbers and they're not really looking good. 37.5 grams sugar for every 100 gram. What does that do to a human body?
So fundamentally, if you really take a look, that if you take 100 grams of the Bonvita packet, almost 48% of that is only sugar, and it's listed on the backside of their label. It's not even something which somebody is claiming is extra sugar. It's listed by them. Now, with what stretch of imagination are they calling it healthy? Because fundamentally, if I take 48 grams of sugar in a bowl and add a multivitamin tablet and start making claims that it's good for bones, it's good for immunity, it's good for muscle, that's not true, that's misleading. Why? Because I just took sugar, added a multivitamin component, which is coming from a chemical. There is no natural source of multivitamin there, because vitamin C and all that you cannot have in a processed food. I mean, it doesn't stay. Plus another problem, which is high sugar is one of the biggest problems, and today world over, whether you look at pediatricians, their councils, you look at health councils, they all say don't give sugar to kids. It will cause attention deficit disorder, it will cause childhood obesity, it will cause gut, irritable bowel syndrome in kids. So having said that, I think fundamentally they are using financial muscle to stop someone from saying what is the truth. Now, the second thing which also he touched upon was there are a lot of emulsifiers in these packaged products, a lot of emulsifiers, and emulsifiers have direct correlation with irritable bowel syndrome in impacting the gut biome, in imbalancing the gut biome, and the gut is the biggest source of immunity. I mean, in our intestine, we have huge amount of immunity which is getting compromised if you keep having foods which are high in sugar and emulsifiers. So what I don't understand is how could the company actually not be cognizant of this fact that this product given to small growing kids, I mean, these can actually be harmful, and they are claiming the real opposite. And mothers are spending their hard-earned money to give this product to their kids every day, thinking that they are doing something good. So what I feel is, I think it's time to understand that companies have to be more accountable to the customer from whom they are making billions of dollars.
Okay. Let me get in Dr. Sachdev at this point in time. Dr. Sachdev was also a member of the Nutrition Advocacy in Public Interest Group. Dr. Sachdev, I want to begin by asking you, you have and your organization has now come on record to side with the influencer and said that you will be lodging an official complaint with Ministry of Consumer Affairs. I want to understand how long before the process really kicks in. There are guidelines in place, and also help us understand what sort of guidelines have SSSAI put out recently as far as branding and packaging of high sugar content is concerned.
Sorry, your voice broke down a little bit, but whatever I could understand is yes, as a member of the NAPI, we have supported what this influencer has said, and actually we have been saying the same things, but it has not gained this much prominence for over a decade now. As has already been highlighted, these are unhealthy. These are products which are vastly exaggerated for the benefits which do not stand the scrutiny of robust science, and simultaneously the potential risk or the harms are hidden. Now, they are operating within the legal framework, in the language, in the manner it's couched, and one can't fault a company for sort of going ahead and doing what its business is. But it is for us and the regulators to make strict guidelines that such things do not come about and doing it. I think apart from the vastly exaggerated claims, the more serious issue here is of the potential harms when the country is facing an epidemic of non-communicable diseases. And one generally tends to look at the obese people there, and what we found in a national survey throughout the country, rich, poor, urban, rural, more than half of the children between 5 and 19 years have what is referred to as metabolic obesity, for whom such a product, be it given in milk or in water or such, is undesirable. Yes, the government has some regulations in place. Enforcement is an issue with the FSSAI and the Consumer Affairs. These need to urgently become topical, contemporary and relevant, so that such marketing or harmful products, the way they are viewed as beneficial, stops in the people's mind. And for that, the government has to be nudged or taken into action. I would make a fervent plea that this controversy should bring some rationality into the advertising which is there, and this is a problem all over the world, but in India, considering the context when the people are much less literate, the urgency is much more desirable.
Okay.
Thank you.
The controversy in India is also bigger because there's ambiguity on what's the threshold. And I want to take you back to the technical committee that was constituted by FSSAI way back in 2020, wherein it was decided that the warning labels should be placed, permanently on every product that has more than 6 grams sugar per 100 gram. That was then revised 6 times to more than 36 grams. So as of today, if any product has more than 36 grams sugar per 100 gram, there should be a warning label. In this case, Bonvita has 37.5 grams. Why is there no warning label? Why is there no clarity, sir, from FSSAI's side?
So, let me first speak with knowledge as the WHO Geneva member of the guideline group. The levels of sugar intake which are supposed to be higher they should not form more than 10% of the energy. And cognizant of that, the WHO had defined, especially the CRO office and the India country office here, what should be the cutoff levels for the sugar which have been shared with the FSSAI and with everyone else. And I would technically, scientifically, unambiguously state that these are the correct levels which the industry should be applying to, irrespective of whether it hits their business or not. The large population health is important. The second question that you asked me is about the warning labels. I think one can't ask the companies to do the self-regulation. The government has to strictly enforce this, and this issue has been under the discussion for over 7 or 8 years, and the one school of thought in which the industry is wanting to be also supportive of is to give a health star rating system in which you say that a product is on the basis of whatever is there is a healthy product if you have 5 stars, 4 or 3. But the problem with that is that if you have an adverse profile, like you have a high sugar, which is not good for the diabetics, or high salt content, that can be easily masked by adding a few nuts or things or fresh fruits. So the clear or the better way to go about, in my opinion, and by several studies and experience of other countries, would be to put a direct labels which will make even an illiterate consumer, and particularly a child and adolescent, see that this product is high in sugar, high in salt, or high in fat, and I need to be aware of this and not consume it. So that's the right way to go, apart from those products which are directly harmful or impacting on the children, to reduce their advertising, or at least they should never ever be advertised to children.
Okay. Let me put out a disclaimer at this point in time that the views expressed here on this panel are that of experts independent of what TV9 believes. It's also important to note that the health system, the nutrition rating that was put out by, FSSAI says that anything that has half a star is least healthy, anything that has 5 stars is most healthy. What Nabi believes in this case is that you're rewarding them with a star as opposed to penalizing them for being harmful. So the system, therefore, that has been devised by FSSAI is flawed in its nature.
No, I'm not sure I'm 100% in agreement with that. A half a star rating or a 1 star rating or a 2 star rating, for anybody who is used to a rating system, a star system, it doesn't qualify as a reward. In fact, if anything, it's a loud and clear warning that it doesn't even meet an average 3-star rating. So anything below that, whether you talk about safety in automobiles, whether you talk about any product you're buying off Amazon, if it has a 1-star rating, 2-star rating, you actually don't go ahead and buy it. So I think these nudges, as these are known in strategic management terminology, these nudges are important. A thumbs up or a thumbs down is a clear indicator. A smiley and a frowny is a clear indicator. And these star systems also become clear indicators. And for even the slightly lesser educated people in a hurry buying shelves of the product, it's very easy to see. You don't really have the, the knowledge and the expertise to understand every single component and its percentage and how much of it should go into your diet. Dr. Shikhar Sharma is the expert there, but most people who go and pick up products from the shelf or buy them off the internet don't really understand a lot of what is written. Okay. You understand there are red flags, right? Preservatives, red flag. High sugar, high salt, red flag. But how much of carbohydrates, how much of protein, how much of which vitamin, which mineral, a layperson doesn't understand. So I think these nudges are really important. Okay. Now, this being a kid's product, obviously these nudges can be a little more kid-friendly, I suppose, than a star rating system. But kids also today get stars and get sort of smileys on their homeworks. But yeah, some sort of nudges are definitely required. They just make it completely idiot-proof. Okay,
do you agree, Dr. Shikhar? Any sort of warning is a good warning, be it a star, be it a rating, anything that can advise viewers that this is perhaps not as healthy as it claims to be.
I think it's definitely a good step, because what happens when you are talking about a country with a billion population, changes are not easy, and therefore the star system is a visual representation of what is good and what's not good, and it's good to start somewhere. Because right now, otherwise, all those complicated numbers. In fact, when I looked at the packet, I had to find a magnifying glass because it was so small. So that's why I think that star rating, which is simple, which is clear, and which is not so ambiguous, is the way forward.
And front of the pack rather than back of the pack.
Yes.
That is your show window. You pick up a product looking at the branding. Along with the branding, and I think not just for kids products or not just for ingredients that go into diet, for anything that you buy, a star system or a similar nudge, I think in the front of the label along with the product, we've seen that hopefully work with respect to, let's say, cigarette packets.
Yes.
Right. So there is a very clear and present warning, but of course, there are different guidelines for tobacco, and it is classified as injurious product. These may not be that toxic, I believe, I hope. that they are not as toxic. So maybe the warning need not be as graphic as in the case of, let's say, tobacco. But some sort of nudges, I think, are definitely required so that it becomes completely idiot-proof. You go, you see a product, you know whether you need to buy it or not, and this needs to be mandated. This needs to be a rule. You want to sell in a country, you want to keep your product available on the shelves. It cannot go, if it is an edible product, a health-related product, it cannot go without these statutory warnings.
Absolutely. Let me also, put it out there for the benefit of our viewers at this point in time. We do not have a statement or a representation from the company, in this case from the parent company of Bonvita. In case there is a statement that comes in, we'll be happy to amend and put that out.
But I think let's put out the official statement that came earlier, which specifically says that it is a scientifically formulated product, and the post has actually created panic and anxiety. That is why we in this case Mondelez, we were concerned by the recent unscientific video on social media that went abnormally viral, distorted facts and made false and negative influences about Bonvita's safety and efficacy. Okay. That's the official statement that came
That's
from
the official
Bonvita.
statement from the parent company of Bonvita that has come out. We've put that out for you, but we'll be happy to amend in case there's a representation that comes in from Bonvita. Sticking to the point of branding and false branding, I mean, that was one of the claims that was made in the video, that this is false branding. It's not healthy, it's high sugar, but more importantly, and this is something Suyash pointed out in a discussion with me, that it also has caffeine, which is considered to be extremely harmful for children, Suyash.
Yes, Shweta, the amount of caffeine, although is about 2.4 to 4.8 milligrams, which is significantly lower than the 100 milligram recommended, but it still contains caffeine, and the fact that they are not putting it out on the label is kind of concerning. Would you agree, ma'am?
I agree. I mean, because caffeine is addictive, like sugar is addictive. So anything which falls in that addictive, band should be put out in the label.
Okay. Dr. Sachdev continues to be with us. Dr. Sachdev, I want to understand from you, sir, what is the responsibility of FSSAI in this case? We know that the controversy is out there, everybody's talking about it, reading about it, but there are also calls for FSSAI to finally step up and make sure that the branding is such, especially with content with products that have high sugar and high salt, that it's clear to the layman without having to look at the back of the packet that this product is perhaps not as healthy as it claims to be.
Absolutely, one word answer, total agreement with you. That's the role of the FSSAI, that's what it should be doing. I mean, it has to come into play immediately, and there have been objections on the draft FSSAI regulation which has been put up, like they're giving too much of a time of 1 to 2 years. But I mean, considering a country of the regional variation, literacy levels and all, you need to have an upfront front of the pack warning that, look, this could be harmful to your health. So just beware, be careful if you want to consume it. That's all it's saying. These products are not to be banned or done something like that. I mean, one has the right to information. The consumer needs to get the correct right to the information to make their own personal choices and not get swayed by the claims. The guidelines and the rules are there, but the main problem is the enforcement. I've had several times or experiences for the self-regulation or the ASCII to write on this. The ads have gone away, a couple of them, 2, 3, but you can't take it on as a full-time job. The enforcement is a very key issue which has to be done.
Okay, and we are given to understand that you, as a member of NAPI has now approached Ministry of Consumer Affairs?
Yes, we have approached several quarters and have written letters on several quarters to this. And I would, with the earlier speaker, say they said a nudge. We want the nudge to be a shout rather than a nudge, in the sense that a clear warning should be there. The reason I state that is because countries like Australia have given up the health star rating system just now because they found it is subject to manipulation. You have product high in sugar that a diabetic person or a pre-diabetic does want to know whether it has high sugar. You add a few nuts or some other things and it becomes a star rating 3.5. So that's how manipulation can be effective in these things. And I mean, with whatever muscle power we have as academics, as what you may call activists, we are trying to stir up in every level, and I'm so happy that this thing has come up or been projected, but hopefully it doesn't die down without some action which benefits the population of India.
Okay. You know, Karthik, this is important because we're talking about Australia, UK and every other country. They're having a guideline as to what is permissible, what is not, what sort of branding is okay, what's not. But in India, there seems to be a way around these guidelines. It's very easy for, and I'm saying this because there've been instances in the past, be it Maggie, controversy around FMCG businesses, able to subvert laws, subvert existing mechanisms to find their own way. In this case particularly, we don't know whether there's going to be any action or not. I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and talk about it. We don't know if there's going to be any action on the ground. But what's important to point out is that in India, it's easy to get around laws, to sort of be able to find your way and do things as you like. And you know, Bonvita, many would say, have done the same.
You're right, Shweta. No two ways about it. You know, it's easy to delay the process, and once a process is delayed, I'm not saying you will for eternity be able to circumvent it and the law will never happen. It'll happen, but things take time in this country to actually go through and pass through its multiple stages and really get enforced, right? And of course, you know, there could be a court case filed against an order like this, and then there is an overall delay in the judiciary and things can get stalled. Now the problem with stalling is that public memory is very short-lived, and advertising dollars available to multinationals are fairly large, disproportionately large. So public memory short, great advertising, a new breed of advertising, a little change in packaging, and this can all very well become history. But I believe there is not a thin line, rather a fairly thick line between something being not healthy and something being injurious to health. So while claims may eventually get substantiated or not, I don't know, science is going to eventually prevail over that, but there could be a situation where, yeah, maybe the claim that it is a health-based drink may be done away with, but the jury will still be out there to really try and discern that is it really an injurious drink. And if that is the case, of course, you need warnings. And like Mr. Sachdev was saying, you need shouting out warnings. Until then, I think what you need are nudges that treat this advertisement or treat the information given there with a little bit of suspicion. And obviously, if it is a product that you're giving to your child or to somebody, whose immune system or body may not be able to digest it or process it or take right advantage of, consult a dietitian, consult somebody who can advise you better.
Absolutely. And Dr. Shikha, I want you to come in here at this point and make us understand, when it comes to labeling and branding, where do you see India as opposed to maybe, developed country like a UK or Germany or France? As far as our branding on food packaging is concerned, are we clear? Are we there yet? What sort of enforcement have you seen in the past couple of years? Has there been a turnaround?
See, when we talk about India, India is huge. It's one of the most populous countries in the world. It's a billion population.
The most, actually.
Actually, the most.
That came in today.
All the more reasons to dole us out more healthy products.
Now, if you look at the whole regulatory mechanism or the machinery, it is very tiny compared to the size of the population. So even with their best efforts, I have serious doubts they can actually, the regulator can actually do much beyond what they're already doing. I think what is more important is, that companies have to come forward and come up with self-regulatory bodies, because peer pressure works better than a government pressure. So a self-regulatory bodies should be constituted which clearly say that, okay, a recreational product. See, alcohol can be a recreational product, it's not banned in India, but everybody knows it's alcohol, versus something where somebody is claiming that it's good for your kid, it's good for your health. So that is stretching it too far. So that's why I think what is really important is that you can't, this is a clear-cut case of misleading advertisement and should be taken as that. Because in fact, they should come forward and talk about that on what grounds did they give that ad that it is healthy, it is good for the bones. Because even like today if you put a multivitamin in an alcohol glass and say it has multivitamin, it's good for your health. So similarly with so much of sugar, they've just added some multivitamin and saying it's good for your health. that doesn't cut ice. Because if there's something harmful, it's going to counter the impact of any other thing you have already put in that.
So just to play devil's advocate, ma'am, help me understand.
Yes.
A 200 ml glass of milk.
Yes.
If I add 1.5 teaspoons of sugar.
Yes.
And drink it, versus let's say adding 1.5 teaspoons of Bonvita and drinking it, which of the two is a greater evil?
Bonvita. And I'll tell you why. It's a greater evil.
Even
why?
though it has multivitamins added?
Yeah, because
even though it has immunity boosters added?
Because it has emulsifiers, it has artificial colors, it has artificial preservatives, and all those act against the gut.
Okay.
So even with a devil like sugar, it's still worse because it has all those chemicals which help it stay on the shelves for 18 months or 12 months or increase its shelf life.
Right.
Okay. So,
and emulsifiers are typically preservatives? Is
so
that right?
emulsifiers basically, they help oil and water to be homogenized. So when you take a spoonful of any of these drinks and you add to milk or sugar, they form clumps.
Okay.
So when you use emulsifiers, then they kind of homogenize better, they mix better.
Right.
And especially if you see that there are a lot of colors which are added. Now they might say they're all approved colors, but you can't be having artificial colors every day in your kids' diet.
Right.
So those are the real problems.
Right. So is it okay to consume even a product like Bonvita, given these claims, and these claims are yet to be substantiated totally, but even if one were to believe these claims, is it okay to still have this in moderation instead of having it every day, instead of having it twice every day? Is it okay to have them in moderation, or according to your professional opinion, these need to be discarded completely?
So I would say three things. The first is that if they are being consumed for boosting immunity, improving bone strength, improving muscle, then it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing like fresh food which can do all three. You don't need a product to do all that.
Yeah.
If it is as a recreational drink, like chocolates, like toffees, like ice creams, which have all these things also, then it's a recreational product, which means that a kid wants chocolate, he's having a milk product with Bonvita. Third thing is, every day, if you are giving it to the child, you're actually building or training the taste buds to become addicted to sugar.
Of course.
So these are the three, I would say, broad areas where I would say that mothers and institutions need to take cognizance of the fact that when you're dealing with a child, you're dealing with a growing body, which has very long-term effects.
One more idiot-proof question, if you'll permit me. A Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate being sold, same parent company, Mondelez, Cadbury, a Dairy Milk chocolate being sold does not make any claims of it being healthy.
Absolutely, yes.
A Bonvita packet being sold makes claims of being healthy.
Yes.
Let's say ceteris paribus, economic term, all other conditions met.
Yes.
If there is the same level of satisfaction that a child derives to quench the sort of, zeal for, let's say, having a chocolate-based product, between a Cadbury's Dairy Milk, which doesn't come with a healthy sort of, disclaimer tag to it, versus a glass of milk, 200 ml, with 1.5 teaspoons of Bonvita, which of the two is a lesser evil?
See, I'll tell you, it's a difficult question. The reason being is that most people would not give a bar of chocolate to their child every day.
Okay.
Because it is recognized as unhealthy, and in fact most mothers would only give it as an occasional treat.
So 20 grams of chocolate versus 20 grams of Bonvita added in 200 ml of milk.
So there the difference or the weightage of the milk comes in.
Yeah.
If it is just Bonvita, you take a spoonful and eat it, and you have a milk chocolate, it's the same.
So then is the claim really at a fundamental level incorrect that Bonvita added to milk and the advised prescribed, let's say 20 grams being consumed is healthier? It may not be healthy, and that's also of course a very ambiguous term. It may be healthier than a similar product being sold by the same company.
I wouldn't say healthier, I would say lesser evil.
Which
because
healthier?
healthy is a very wide term. I would say lesser evil.
Okay.
So you were talking about artificial colorants and that are being added, and Revant also in his videos, one of the things that he pointed out was that these artificial colorants can cause cancer. So are there any studies that substantiate those claims? Have you read anything about it?
See, if you see globally, cancer is rising phenomenally, right? And now cancer is being called a lifestyle disorder, which means that people in whose lifestyle they are having certain kinds of foods, which is primarily packaged foods, and they are sedentary or they have other issues of lifestyle, they are more likely to get cancer, because now cancer has become a lifestyle disorder. Having said that, it's also proven that the gut biome gets trained by the food you eat. Okay. So if starting from the age of 7 or 8, when typically mothers like to give milk to their kids, until the age of 15, when the kid starts choosing for himself whether he likes it or doesn't like it. So those 10 formative years, from say 5 to 15 or whatever, 8, 9 formative years, you are stuffing food into the body which would have long-term side effects, which we still don't know. Because see, these prospective studies have to be done over 10 or 20 years to be really true. Because suppose if somebody says that sugar is harmful, now if I drink a little sugar today, it's not going to kill me tomorrow. But yes, you have to keep studying the impacts. The problem with food studies is that it has to be done over a longer period of time.
But ma'am, a brand and a product like Bonvita has been around for decades.
Yes.
If there were actually some scientifically proven adverse effects, wouldn't they have surfaced already in a more empirical sort of a way, rather than it still decades later being only at a hypothesis stage?
See, if you look at the ingredients, each of the ingredients has some or the other research study which shows that it is unhealthy. So if I look at it in a different way, like if I look at each ingredient individually, pick up each, whether it's sugar, whether it's emulsifier, whether it's artificial colors, and say that there are enough studies to say they're unhealthy for kids, then obviously any product, whether it could be another company's product also.
Right.
If they put all these ingredients together, if those are the ingredients with which they're making this product, it is unhealthy. Now, what happens is that in every country, if you talk about the ingredients and say it's unhealthy, companies usually don't take action. The moment you pick up the brand name and say it's unhealthy, that's where
the antennas go up.
Yeah, the antennas go up. So what I think fundamentally is very important is that we have to understand that whether it is A company or B company, if there is a product which is chocolate, which is sugar, it is unhealthy. It is unhealthy for the kid and definitely should not be given every day.
Okay.
Shweta, there's one point I want to make here. There are yes, sugar alternatives available in the market. There are brands which I'd not like to name. There are brands which are using, let's say, date extract as a natural sweetener. There are products which are using many other such techniques which are substitutes for sugar but apparently give the same level of satisfaction to any consumer. But these are also priced much higher, because the cost of raw material, the ingredient that goes into them, is much higher than sugar, which is more easily and available at a much cheaper price. So the point also is that to cater to a large base, do companies really have the option today to not add a product like sugar to their ingredients and yet be able to provide a product to people who are affording it at present but may not be able to afford it if the input cost, the raw material cost goes up drastically? So that's one point I wanted to make. And perhaps one question that Mr. Sachdev might be able to answer is that, are we looking at Bonvita now being an isolated case against which you're going to crusade? Or is this going to open the Pandora's box, for every other such product available in the market?
So, thank you for allowing me to come, and I had to make a few points, but I'll directly answer the question you raised, in which no, it would be wrong to just the one which has come out. Any product which crosses the high sugar, high salt or high fat threshold is a risk to the health in the future, especially if consumed in large amounts, and they all should be treated equally.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't intend to sort of do this again. But a report published in the Hindu newspaper today said that out of 1,306 samples which claim to be dairy confectionery sweets, there are only there are less than 20% that actually had below 36 grams of sugar. So we are saying we are pretty much, and 36 is also, like Shweta had mentioned previously, is a 6x increase on the permissible amount of sugar content. So are we actually pretty much going after the entire market?
Listen, I mean, it reminds me of the time when I was there, when smoking was a very good thing. It was felt to be in style to be smoking, and in fact there are studies or there were attempts to prove that smoking is good for health. So 36% in a product, you say if one person takes it at one time, what harm will it cause? Certainly if it takes at one time, but as Shikha ji illustrated, it's really the addictiveness and the combination of all these things which constitute what is known as a ultra processed food, and one continues to have the craving to have this. So the best way to go about looking at this would be to design an experiment wherein people are put away from such products and they go to the natural phase. Well, that one experiment was done in the US on the ultra processed food, not on the Bonvita product or any of the products like this. They were told to consume ad libitum the ultra processed food versus the homemade foods. And guess what? In just 2 weeks' time, the adults, these were adults, gained 1 kg of weight, and their metabolic factors on diabetes, lipids and all started going haywire. So on the other hand, you're talking of this high sugar, there is enough evidence, the 10% of the free energy which I told to you from the WHO, I would request you to see that document. That's based on randomized controlled trial evidence which shows that if you reduce the sugar content or the intake below this level, you become more healthy, or if you consume more than this, becomes unhealthy. So it's a question that you ask is, yes, the industry can reduce this amount, they can self-regulate. It may not be possible in all the products, but then the consumer has to decide whether the consumer is willing to take that risk for it. I think the core of any decision making should be the health of the person and not the business prospect from this perspective. It's the same analogy which applies for the smoking.
Okay.
And the second point that I wanted to make, a very brief one shortly, is I think the way this has been advertised, they are legally not too wrong or perfect as far as what the current rules and regulations and laws state. As Shikhadi was mentioning, if you put in a multiple micronutrient pill, I mean, these are the claims which the FSSAI has stated that if you have excess of this amount of vitamin, you can make this. They don't say it. It supports immunity, supports bone growth. That's a vague claim, but the way it is perceived by the consumer and with the magnifying advertisement and showing the child who is a small one versus one who is consuming more becomes more like this, is that immunity boosting actually can be harmful also. Many of these products cause an extra immune response to cause allergy. Allergy is immune mediated only. So all these ultra processed products, the discussion which is occurring, all these components, then more n number of components you add to make it more tasty or addictive, your allergies are going to rise, and there is enough data to show that.
So give us a headline, sir. Are you going to go after only the companies which are which claim to be health beneficial to the health and maybe false in their claim, or is it your endeavor to even pick up companies which don't really claim to be healthy but have high sugar content and hence a shout or a nudge or a warning that these may still be injurious to health?
Yeah, I am definitely. I think we are mixing up two issues which the advertisement world likes to do. That is making stupendous claims of benefits and at the same time hiding the negative repercussions of the risks to the health.
So those are the ones you want to go after,
and
sir?
Both must come to the fore. If any product is not making a claim but is high in products which are likely to impact the health negatively, there must be a clear warning label, a shove as I would prefer it rather than a nudge, on the front of the pack labeling where it states like that. And for the benefit claims, I think one has to become much more rigorous about this and be aware of the way in this, which is its couch. That's the advertisement world's business. I mean, that's a livelihood, the way that they do it, that it doesn't give very false hopes. So that has to be made in a very serious way. The FSSAI has attempted it, like I told you, using softer words, but the way it is portrayed, and they transgress the territory of the line, thick or thin, whatever it is, at many times, but which may not go with the legal scrutiny and all the time that it takes for the legal. So both aspects, benefit and harms, have to be taken care of in this thing.
And how much time are you giving yourself, sir, to see this battle through?
Let me clarify, I'm not a member of the FSSAI panel at the moment. I served 2 terms of 3 years, which ended in March 2023, and not directly in this advertisement panel at this thing. But the draft which has come up has given them an extra time in whatever it was, if it comes, anyhow, they haven't taken a decision whether it's health star rating or a warning label. I mean, I think it's 3 or 4 years time which has been given, which is too high. You can't wait for this thing. The companies can easily work around this and much more later, especially the bigger giant multinational companies. They are willing to reduce the content to someone, and as you said rightly, the delays are inevitable, and we are losing out on the health of the people all the time. Admittedly, it is making some money for some people.
Right.
Okay, so there's a time frame here that the companies have been given, 4 to 5 years, which clearly is being pointed out. Very long a time frame, enough for these companies to turn around, work around. But the idea that is a very long time, and perhaps that time needs to be cut down. Remember, NAPI there says that they're going after every drink that claims to be whether healthy or not, but has high sugar content, to be brought under radar of FSSAI and put out a label there that it's not safe for daily consumption. Thanks very much for joining us with all those details, Dr. Sachdev. We're going to move on now. Another big story that we're tracking at this point in time, that is after a spellbinding store opening ceremony in Mumbai on Tuesday, Apple today opened its second store in the country, in New Delhi, in Saket, with CEO Tim Cook welcoming customers. Now, Cook, who called on Prime Minister Modi, expressed his delight at the incredible reception. India has emerged as an important market for iPhone manufacturer, and the tech giant is doubling down on its growth plans for the world's second largest smartphone market. My colleague Shruti Sharma, who was at Saket to witness the first-hand experience of exclusive Apple Store launch, is joining us at the moment. Tell us about what it's looking like around you, Shruti.
Has opened its second store in Delhi today. Apple CEO Tim Cook was here to welcome the customers, and you can see the excitement. How excited are people? This is Apple Saket, Apple Store, where you can see a lot of excitement in the people. You can see the products displayed very amazingly here, and each and every product is been taken care of in terms of how it's kept, how it's displayed. You have new latest iPhones, you have iPads, iPad Pro. There's accessories that you get here in terms of iWatch bands, phone covers, and lots more. There have been people waiting here since 6 o'clock in the morning just to get a glimpse of the Apple CEO Tim Cook, and we were also here to witness the same. Yes, you could see the excitement, it's maddening outside. We'll just show you how is the craze outside the store. You can see people lined up all around just to have a glimpse of the new Apple Store open in Delhi. What's more? Well, let's quickly show you the store and tell you more about it.
So as you can see, there are a lot of products on display, and Apple Saket features a uniquely designed curved storefront with the white oak tables. They look very, very chic. Also, the store showcases company's many products and accessories. Apple Saket runs on 100% renewable energy and is carbon neutral. Much like Apple BKC, the iPhone maker has made attempts to Indianize its second outlet as well. Apple Saket features a Genius Bar. Customers can book an appointment here for hands-on technical and hardware support. This is how the store looks like, and if sources are to be believed, Apple is paying approximately 40 lakh per month for this Saket store as a rent.
All right, the grand opening there of the Apple Saket store. With me in the studio, my colleague Karthik Malhotra continues to be here. Also joining us, Krishna Kumar. We discussed this just about 2 days ago with the grand opening of the BKC store.
Yes.
Apple's BKC store. Tim Cook there, standing at the gates once again, greeting people here in Delhi in Saket. What's it looking like for Apple in Delhi at this point?
A lot, I must say, because a lot has transpired since that BKC store launch in Mumbai. Because he is in Delhi, Tim Cook is in Delhi, he's met with the Prime Minister of India, has promised to double down on both investments in India for manufacturing capabilities and exports out of India, both at currently about 5% of iPhone sales across the world comes from India. India-made iPhones. You're looking at a doubling down on that. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the Deputy Information Technology Minister, has said that you're looking at doubling and tripling of investments and exports by Apple in India and from India in the years to go forward. So, and here's the deal: we talk a lot about Apple and what does the store launch mean. Apple launched its first store in China back in the year 2008. And at that point in time, about 750 million odd was the sales in China. In about 2 to 3 years, that went up to about 12 billion. It was an 11% rise. So you're looking at a major play, especially, so last time this happened in China, that's what it resulted in. Already the growth for Apple iPhones in India is incredible, despite the fact that it's one of the lowest per capita income, per capita GDP countries for Apple to open a store. There are countries with a better per capita income, per capita GDP, like Malaysia, South Africa, Vietnam, where there are no Apple stores. But in India, where it's about 7,000 and per capita GDP, and Apple chooses to open a store over here. So it talks about the opportunity that India presents, because bear in mind, when Apple opened a store in China back in 2008, China's per capita income and per capita GDP was around $7,000. So it's not all that odd that India presents a market like that because of the demographic. You talk about 50% young people, most of them are aspirational. They are the ones who are contributing to 6.5 million shipments of sales of iPhones in India. So it is it's a long-term play. We're seeing step one. It's like landing, the moon landing. It's like step one of Apple landing up in India with 2 stores, not 1 but 2, because that's the size of India. And get this, 50% of Apple store employees are going to be women, and they're going to be people from 18 different states of India in one Apple store speaking 15 different Indian languages. That's the kind of attention to detail that Apple comes to India with.
Contributing to the diversity, and they are absolutely utilizing the diversity of this country. Now, we don't know whether, Apple, obviously looking at emulating the same growth chart that it had in China when it opened its first store. It is looking good for Apple. They met with all the top senior leaders in this country, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Prime Minister, and they're promising more manufacturing, more growth, and a sense of more diversity, utilizing that diversity in its manufacturing here in India, Karthik.
So I think primarily these are great optics. It's a great statement that Apple is making, not just in closed doors in meetings with corporate leaders or with politicians or leadership in the country, but out there in the public. I think it's a great public statement they are making on their seriousness, their commitment to stay invested in India. And that is good news. But is that actually a reason to celebrate at a retail level with the kind of crowds that we saw, the visuals that we saw? The phones aren't getting any cheaper. Nobody is there to dole out these instruments to you for free, right? They're still going to cost you pretty much the same, as if not more, because now there's a 40 lakh rupee rental added as well, which has to be offset. So the phones are still going to cost you the same. Does it really, the presence of an Apple store, does it really make a difference in your life, my life, Krishna's life? Honestly, it doesn't. We would still possibly look for the best deal either on EMI or online or wherever we get it, $1,000 cheaper, $2,000 cheaper, we're going to migrate there. Yeah, I mean, you go to Disneyland as well. You go to Disneyland and you go to Lego parks and you go to, these great experiential places which don't sort of, necessarily mitigate the cost that you will pay for you know, for watching a Disney movie or for buying a Lego set, but
that's the best backhanded compliment I've heard for Apple, because let's think about it. The Apple Store is the Disneyland of Apple products.
Exactly. So you go there, you have a good time, you look at
dream of it.
Yeah, you look at the products that have been aspirational for you, you sort of play with them, you touch them, you see them, you click a nice selfie, and possibly, you know, just explore whatever sizes the phones are available and whatever, you know, battery sizes or capacity, storage that they're available. But beyond that, it doesn't do much. What I'm really happy about is the fact that, yeah, there has been a promise made by Tim Cook to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and to the cabinet ministers that it is doubling down on employment that would be generated through Apple's contract manufacturers in India, from 1 lakh to 2 lakh. Not a huge number. We are sitting at a population of 1.4 billion people. We've become the most populous country. And we are also a country where, what if I remember the numbers correctly, 26% of the population is under the age of 24.
Yes.
And the chunk of, let's say, between 15 to 24 is, you know, in absolute terms, a huge value.
Yeah.
Does it really, you know, do 1 lakh additional jobs also really cut it? Actually, they don't.
Okay.
Right. At a macro level, they don't really add too much of a dent. But the fact is, yeah, you are creating employment, you are setting up factories, you are making capital investments, and you are contributing at some level to the growth of India's GDP, both by getting Indians to buy your products as well as making India an export hub where the products made in India will go outside the shores of India and be sold to markets globally. And that sort of helps us compete against a country like China, where Apple had a bulk of its manufacturing, still has a bulk of its manufacturing. But yeah, over time up to, you know, let's say 2026, 2027, 4 years, 5 years from now, if we are able to, let's say, take up, as estimates suggest, about 25% of Apple's manufacturing, this company is not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
It's among the most valuable companies in the world.
Not going anywhere.
If we can contribute to about 25% of the company's total operations in terms of manufacturing, it's a great fillip for us as a country.
We are looking at replacing China, for that matter, as the manufacturing hub.
And not from a jingoism sort of standpoint. I'm saying pure economics. It's
if
a
I may
great.
just add one point what he's talking about.
Okay.
You know, 50% of India's mobile phone exports were constituted by Apple manufactured exports. You know, that's the kind of numbers that Apple can do, and mainly because the value of the products.
The value of the product.
The product, you know, the same day you complain about Apple for being high-priced phones, that adds to the export value from India, and that's the kind of value that Apple brings in. And let's face it, you know, India's, you know, mobile phone exports have been sputtering, and Apple's, you know, is a shot in the arm for India's mobile phone exports. And we are more than happy for, you know, high-tech manufacturers to come to India. 4 to 6%, you know, off on taxes we are giving. So I mean, I think it's a win-win for Apple and India.
Win-win for Apple and India, and of course we can go on talking about Apple in India. That's the kind of momentum that we're seeing Apple building here in India. But we're running short on time. Thanks very much for watching News 9 Plus.